Yeah, blue screen. Okay, then, can we make a start then so that we can get through this, please?
Steve's outside, so I don't know. That says about him. Sorry, Martin.
He's been outside for months.
He's in the doghouse. He's in the doghouse. Like. Apologies for absence. I've had one from Tim. Anybody else? Steve, have you had any?
Yeah, we had Tim, Gareth, and Pip.
Tim, Gareth, and Pip. Okay. Declarations of interest from anyone? No, cannot see any. Carrie's arrived in person now. Minutes,
Yes.
Minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 9th of June 2020. Has anybody got any comments, observations on those? I've had to peruse myself, can't see anything in particular. One thing I was going to ask with this, Steve, just in general, I meant to ask before, you know, when we record things on Zoom, we can get transcriptions as well, as I understand that is a facility?
Yes, yeah, but only in Welsh.
Only in Welsh?
Yeah. I'm kidding you.
I thought you might be. I was just going to say, is that any use for the minutes or what have you? Or have you thought about using those for the minutes?
No, because minutes of council meetings are merely meant to be a record of your decisions rather than.
Yeah, but I just thought
the debate. But,
yeah, but using them to help jog your memory, as it were. I just wanted to highlight that there was a facility there in case you weren't aware of it more than anything.
I actually prefer it without the Zoom recorded details of each of the debates, because I think it can be quite intimidating for certain people to feel as if they can contribute.
Well, to be honest, this is something which has been brought up by other councillors as well, and I'm in discussion with Steve. I don't want to preempt this, but it's something that we're going to table to an agenda at the future full council meeting, because it has been raised by a number of councillors. So should we move on to the clerk's report? Oh, sorry, the special meeting. I forgot the special meeting. Are we okay with the minutes of that?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Move on to the clerk's report. Anybody? Do you want to comment on this, Steve?
I hope everyone's read it in depth.
Yeah.
Martin, there is no report this month.
I did wonder.
Right. Well, shall we move on to the chair's report, which I have found now? The chair's report is available on OneDrive, but I will go through it all because there's been a few things, particularly in relation to the Underhill Park development, that I think I need to bring people up to speed on. Most of my activity during the past month is related to taking forward the Underhill Park development. On Friday the 19th of June, the first meeting was held of the newly convened MCC team, who would be working on a joint working group, mainly to bring new members up to date and to agree a strategy for moving forward. On Sunday the 28th of June, I attended the MCA trustees meeting in an advisory capacity in order to provide an update of the development and to also receive an update from them as how they were proceeding with their lottery funding application. I was able to inform them that at this meeting that the new representatives, who the new representatives were from MCC on the joint working group, and that we were imminently awaiting the report from our consultant, and that after the report had arrived, we would be seeking a joint working group meeting in order to explore how the initiative could be taken forward in light of its contents. In turn, they were able to inform me that most of the background work had already been completed on their stage 2 lottery application, and they were now hoping to submit it soon. Just to bring you up to the latest date, it has been submitted now. The report from the One Voice Wales consultant was received on the 30th of June, and following a first reading of the report, I had a phone conversation with the consultant, Gareth Kiddy, to discuss its initial findings and recommendations. Following on from this conversation, a joint meeting was arranged between MCC Underhill team and Gareth Kiddy to discuss in more depth the recommendations and findings of the report and to agree a way forward. Following this meeting, the report has now been shared with MCA, and they have been invited to a meeting during the week commencing the 13th of July to explore the next step. That meeting was held earlier today. Just to bring you up to date on other activities which would relate to some of the other committees which are represented today. On Monday, the 22nd of June, I attended a meeting with City and County of Swansea councillors Des Thomas and Mark Child, together with MCC councillors Rebecca Fogarty, Sarah Keaton and Gareth Ford, to explore the proposal, including the community development plan of trialling a traffic calming shared space initiative opposite the shops at the top of West Cross Lane. Following a fruitful discussion with both Des and Mark, where they indicated maybe a possibility of taking such initiative forward jointly between SCC and MCC, it was decided to take this both to the Environmental and Economic Committees with a view of developing a joint task force to take this proposal forward. Since taking the role of chair of MCC, I have also had ongoing discussions with Christine Discombe, who is chair of the Austrian Association, with the view of developing robust and effective joint working relationships as we go forward with the lease acquisition. I am pleased to report that in general these discussions have been positive in nature, and following the special MCC meeting on the 30th of June, I approached Christine with the recommendations adopted at the meeting that 4 councillors be appointed to work with representatives of the Austrian Association to form a management committee for taking developments of the Austrian forward. Christine welcomed this decision, and following discussion with the Austrian Association Committee, they have now identified 4 representatives from their side to enter into this joint working group. Okay, any questions, any observations on this, Will Thomas?
Yeah, I just intrigued really. The meeting you had in West Cross with Des and Mark regarding the shared space scheme. Was there any sort of officers there, and what does the scheme look like? How big is it? And is it the capital scheme that Mark and Des are putting forward as Swansea councillors, or
no?
What's the motivation of the space?
This was the scheme that was put forward in the community plan from Urban Foundry in relation to just traffic calming in the top of West Cross Lane. From what I understood from the discussions, Mark had been in conversation with representatives from Urban Foundry. They were interested, particularly as we're coming out of lockdown now, as this would be maybe a good opportunity to implement a traffic calming shared space initiative at the top of West Cross Lane, with the view of exploring how that might be rolled out into other areas of the MCC area. So it's quite an exploratory talks at this sort of point, but it would be the scheme that is outlined in the community plan. Okay,
no, only reason I asked that is Swansea councillors have had an initiative with a capital scheme to put forward on top of the community budget that we currently have, and I was wondering if they were that when you said it was a collaborative project. Yeah. I was wondering if that was.
But I think maybe that might be something that they're thinking of using to support it. But I think we'll have to clarify that, and we can clarify that through the economic and the environmental. Carrie?
Yes, going back to Underhill, the consultants report.
Yeah.
We were assured when we agreed to this that we would all have an opportunity to input into it. So what happened to that opportunity?
The report has been circulated to you. The opportunity is there for you to input into it. It is not.
Where has it been circulated? Because it certainly never came to me.
Steve?
And it doesn't appear to be on OneDrive anywhere.
Well, I've definitely messaged Steve the other day, making sure that it be circulated for this meeting. Steve?
Yeah, sorry, you did do that. I'll make sure it's on OneDrive now, so it should be available in a moment.
Okay.
Right. And also, just as an aside, your chair's report isn't on OneDrive either.
I thought it wasn't. I checked this beforehand, to be honest.
Yeah.
Steve assured me it was.
So there is still an opportunity for us all to actually comment
definitely,
on that
yeah.
report.
This is what I mean.
It is supposed to be our report, not
Yeah.
MCA's report. So
we've
surely before MCA have any comment on it, there should be an opportunity for MCC councillors to have their input into it on the basis we've paid for it, and it's supposed to be to represent our interests, not theirs.
Yeah, we fully understand that. And as I sort of said, it's a working document that is still in the process of being taken forward. It has been circulated to you now, as I sort of said. When it came in, it has been considered by the joint working group, and now it has been circulated to the councillors. So you have got the opportunity to have an input onto it now. Okay.
Chair, just for clarification, it's an interim report, isn't it?
Yes,
It's
that's
not
what
the
I'm
final
saying.
one. He's not finished his work yet. He just wanted to get something out there so we could look at it initially.
And get the discussion going. Rebecca, did you want to come in?
I was just going to, further reassure Carrie that the discussion that we'd had as the joint working group representatives was without any of the MCA people. It was just with us and Gareth. And it was also very much on, well, what actions will we as the council take to assure ourselves? I don't necessarily think we are focused too much on what MCA think of it. As you say, it is our report. So that is definitely the approach we're taking.
Okay, Miles, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just briefly to say, I've been approached about potential use of the Ostream, the outside of the Ostream Centre, due to the challenges many businesses are having, particularly on Newton Road, because there seems to be a lot of issues there. I understand anything that has to happen on that would need to go through Christine. So just as you mentioned, your discussions with her, then it was just to say if we could pick that up after. Tomorrow or whatever, that would be really useful.
Okay, just as a sort of footnote to that, Christine did message me today to say that they're going to have some workers come into the area to do the garden and surrounding areas to tidy it up, because no work has been done on it, obviously, the past couple of months. So they're going to be starting that tomorrow. Okay. Anybody else? Okay then, so can we take it that we can move forward on that and accept that report? Right. Oh, sorry. So Steve, could you check on that in relation to, because it seems to be maybe there's some sort of issue with things getting to be on OneDrive, because as I sort of said, when I checked before the meeting, my report wasn't on OneDrive, but you seem to find it there. And then also this other thing about the Gareth Kiddy's report.
Yeah,
so,
I've just been putting the other document on, and I see that there's been a problem with my computer syncing. There's a problem with our Paul and I share a password, and I had problems with that yesterday, and we've reverted back to the old one, and then that may have caused a problem. So I'm just literally trying to get it to sync as we speak.
Okay then, so shall we move over to the financial report, and shall I hand over to Paul?
Okay, thanks, Chair. Due to the pandemic, we're still paying everything by bank transfer rather than the signing of checks. So there's a list of payments that have been made in the last month for retrospective approval. Comes to just around 17,000 excluding the VAT. There's also the list of all the Barclaycard purchases for the June statement. All the invoices for the Barclaycard purchases and for the bank transfers are all on OneDrive, so hopefully, I put those on yesterday, so hopefully you can access them. Income for this month was a grand total of nothing. And there's the bank balances, just over 640,000 we've got in the bank at the moment. And The final issue I've included in my report is to do with the funding provided to MCA for the professional team. It's the team that they are appointing to get the tender up to, to get the project forward to allow them to go to tender. When this was reported to the Special Council at the end of May, MCA had told us that it would cost £40,000 to get to that stage. And we've been having the reports in from MCA where they've had their tenders and where they've been appraising the tenders. And the latest ones, when I looked at them last week, they were claiming 46,000. So when I queried that with them, it came out that the 40,000 should have been plus VAT, which in effect would have been 48,000, although that wasn't mentioned at the time. And they've also identified that when they've had the tenders back, it has come in at slightly more than they were expecting. The 40,000 they said was an estimate, and that the total cost now to take the project forward to tender stage, including all elements of VAT, is £50,512.40. So it is an increase. It's a small increase on the 40,000, but it's the VAT as well. But what they've assured me is that all of those costs will be contained within the 1.2 million that the council has agreed to underwrite. So there's no increase in the total value that MCC is going to underwrite. It's just an initial increase in the amount that they are being funded to move the project forward to the tender stage. And because there's no increased cost in the overall cost of the scheme, my recommendation is to increase the grant that's been approved at this stage to that figure of 50,512.40.
Okay, any comments, observations from anyone? Carrie?
Yeah, did you have an opportunity to look at the tenders, Paul? Because that was what was agreed.
I had the tender reports. I haven't seen the actual tenders, but I've seen the tender reports that that were produced by, I think, by David Wilson and Myrian Howells.
Well, would you know? Sorry, but we did agree that you should actually see the actual tenders just to make sure that they are offering best value for money. It may be that there is something in those that where savings could be made. I mean, I know if Pip was here, the first thing he'd be saying was, well, what else can we get out of them for the money? So I think before we agree to anything, you should at least have the opportunity to go through those tenders and actually make sure that they actually are exactly what it was that we agreed they should be. And if there are any additional costs in there that, could quite easily be removed, or that in fact are not within what was originally agreed, then those things should be brought up.
Okay, Pamela?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we agree that Paul would be part of the tendering team, not just being as it's stipulated in the...
Sorry, we can't hear you, Pam.
No, you're really quiet, Pam.
Okay. I'm off mute. Didn't we stipulate that Paul would be part of the team who went through the tenders, not just somebody who would be told that this is what the tender is? We really disagreed to that when we saw it in the write-up of the project.
That was my understanding, yeah.
The understanding was that MCC would not be informed as to whom the tender had been awarded, that Paul would be a part of the team that was discussing the tenders from the start, that we would not just be informed who they had decided they were going to have, that we would be part of the process. That was a big objection that came up when we were talking it through. Or am I wrong? Or am I remembering wrongly? But I don't think so.
Anybody else? I was going to say that one of the key recommendations, which is in the report from Gareth Kiddy from One Voice Wales, is that we appoint our own project manager to oversee this tendering process. My own feeling is in relation to this, it is a situation I'm not happy about, I've got to be perfectly honest, but it is a situation which has arisen, and it has arisen through contingency, through responding to contingencies. It is a situation I really don't want to see happening again, and I think if we appoint our own project manager in relation to this, then that would be the point of that project manager. But when it comes to this particular situation, as Paul has outlined, the solution that he's come up with will not have any impact whatsoever in our overall commitment. So I think in this particular instance, it would be best to probably proceed in this way, just for the case of efficacy. Carrie?
Well, yeah, I still think that, you know, before any decisions are made, that we just hand the money over, that Paul actually should have full sight of those tenders. And although you're saying, well, it won't affect the overall 1.2 million, well, an awful lot of that 1.2 million was supposed to be only if grants weren't available. But all this sort of thing are things that are way outside any grant opportunities. So it, you know, this is money that can't be rebalanced to get any sort of grant. So I think we do have to be very careful about just happily just adding on another 10,000 and handing it over without any oversight or any sort of control over it at all.
Okay, Will, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think Paul should have sight of the tenders. I mean, I'm sure in the tendering report it says why they chose the one they did over others. But you know, I don't see any problem with copying. You know, Paul having sight of all the tenders, and you know, it's transparent to do so. So I'd agree with that.
Okay, Rebecca.
Could we then agree the recommendation subject to Paul's satisfaction that they have indeed gone ahead with the best value for money option, having seen all the tenders?
Yeah,
I have to say, I am also, just for the record, really unhappy. And I just hope that this is a bit of a wake-up call, and that we, you know, the fact that it's an error on an amount this size means that it won't happen on an amount that is a much larger size at a later date. But I think we shouldn't be soft on it. It is a bit of a...
And we need to nip this in the bud, and I made this abundantly clear at the meeting that we had earlier on today, to be honest. But is that a recommendation? To me, that sounds like a sensible recommendation as to how we can move forward.
Chair, could I ask, is this the only section of the work that's going out to tender? Is this the end of it, or will there be more tender experiences coming in?
Oh, no, there will be more tenders going out, I'm sure, in the future. And this is why I think it's very important that we get this project manager, quantity surveyor in place, to be honest, to monitor the situation going forward.
So if I could just say, Chair, what they'll be doing is once they've got past this stage and everything's been approved in terms of the loan and in terms of our consultants report, then they'll be going out to tender for a contractor to actually build the buildings that's going to be on site. So there is a major tendering process that's still to go through after this.
That's what I mean. So I think echoing Rebecca's point, at least this has maybe flagged up something. This is something we need to nip in the bud now, because this is not the way that we can go forward in partnership working into the future.
With respect, Chair, I thought that we had sorted this out before we got to this stage. We made this point beforehand. So I appreciate what you're saying now, but how are we not going to, they're just going to ride over it and do it again?
Well, if that is the case, we've made it abundantly clear now. If we have got a project manager in place and a quantity surveyor in place, I really would be struggling to see how they could get away with it in future.
I think, if I could just jump in, I think just what's happened here, and I agree that it's not good enough and definitely needs to change. But what's happened here is the 40,000 was an estimate.
And they should have made that clear.
They should have made that clear, yeah. And I think it was made clear, but I don't think everyone maybe took it in, and we probably should have waited for them to have a firm price before we agendaed it, really, rather than going on an estimate. That's what's happened.
Well, this is what I mean. But as I sort of said, they should have made that clear, which they didn't at the time. Look, I've gone back through the paperwork, and it wasn't clear at the time that was an estimate. And we okayed expenditure up to the sum of £40,000, and that was quite clear. Carrie? Okay.
Yeah. Can I assume that our costs for this project manager and quantity surveyor are also going to come out
Oh,
of that
yes.
1.2 million
Yes.
pounds.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
that's so. I just want
that's
that
clear. That is
clear,
clear.
admitted that
No,
it's
that
not
is
going
clear.
to be more money that they're asking for later.
No, that is
Okay.
abundantly clear, and you know we've made that clear. And as I sort of said, that is clear in that is quite clear in the report from Gareth Kiddy.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So can we go forward with taking in Rebecca's suggestion that we move forward on this, but with Paul having a look at the tenders? Is everybody in agreement with that?
Do you mean,
okay.
Sorry, Chair, do you mean looking at him after the fact or being part of the process in future? Or are we not taking that into account?
We're going to be part of the process in future because we will have our quantity surveyor, our project manager in place. And as I sort of said, we definitely don't want this situation occurring in the future.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, we're not going to be handing over this money until Paul is fully satisfied that we've actually got that all this extra money is actually necessary and that there aren't things within those tenders where savings could be made.
Yes, I would think that's right. Is that true, Paul?
Yeah, at the moment they've been paid up to the 40,000, which was approved at council back in May. But there's not nothing further has been paid until the recommendation is agreed at this meeting. So it won't be paid now until I've looked at those tenders and reported back.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you very much. Okay, the outturn report, is this you again, Paul?
Yeah, that's me again. Thanks, Chair. At the last meeting where we approved the accounts, what I said was I'd bring an outturn report back to the next council, so that's what this report is. The table there in the report shows a breakdown of all the expenditure for the council against its budget. Outturn is just the position as at the 31st of March each year or the end of the financial year. So it shows an underspend against the budget of 489,000, but that budgeted figure includes all the earmarked reserves as well. So it's different to the underspend against the precept. The amount that was underspent against the precept is about 255,000. But as I said, that excludes the earmarked reserves that were built in. So we're looking at an underspend. To get to that end of year position, there was some environment which had to be actioned to comply with financial regulations. For any budgets which are overspent, then we had to find a way of viring against that to make sure that it didn't overspend. So I've attached a list of all the environment that I actioned at the end of the year. And I've also attached a breakdown of that, the figures in that table for each of those cost centres or committees. So there's a list there of all the expenditure for each of those areas. So in terms of the environment, the recommendation is to approve that end of year environment.
Okay, any observations, any comments? No?
Looks fine to me.
Yeah. Are we okay to okay this then?
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody
Okay.
Happy with that?
Okay, thanks, Chair. So the final part of that report then is the movement in earmark in reserves. Back in March, the council approved a reserves policy, which allowed the council to hold general reserves, which are just for unforeseen circumstances in case anything happens, and earmark reserves, which are held for specific purposes, things like Underhill or the skate park or Langland Tennis. In terms of general reserves, what that policy suggested was that the council should hold general reserves which are equivalent to 6 months of the annual running costs, which based on the current year's budget is around £59,000. And we were about £20,000 short of that at the end of last March. So what I've done is from the underspend this year, I've not allocated around 19,500 of the underspend. So that has now been added to the general reserves. So we are now holding general reserves which are equivalent to 6 months of the council's annual running costs. And there's also then, we've set up a number of earmark reserves from that underspend. And I also circulated a a spreadsheet which shows the reserves movement for the year. Starts off with the ones that were set up at the end of last financial year, and it shows what's been spent out of those, and then it adds the new year-mark reserves, which have been set, which it's recommended are set up at the start of the current financial year. So only the reserves policy says that only council can approve movements to and from reserves. So the recommendation is to approve those amounts spent from reserves and those amounts transferred into reserves, which is shown on that spreadsheet. For the Underhill project, I think there's about 4 items on there. I've separated them out so people can see where they've come from. But in effect, there's about 193,000 in reserves at the end of March last year, which is to be put towards the Underhill project. And I will put them all together into one figure then once this has been approved. But I thought it was easier just to separate them out so everybody could see where they're coming from. So the recommendation on this then is for council to approve those movements to and from reserves.
Okay, Carrie, you muted, Carrie.
Yeah, I just. How do we know which are the reserves that are now, kept in for this year, and which are the ones that have gone to Underhill? So it's the ones that you've got brackets afterwards, Underhill.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's 4 of them. There's the money for the parking warden.
Oh yes.
There's the money that was in the budget last year, the 100,000, which was towards Underhill. There's the underspend on the contingency fund, and then there's what's left of the underspend last year. So there's 4 items there.
Yep. Okay.
Which are all for Underhill.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, clear of that. Anybody else? Okay, are we happy to okay that proposal? Yes. Happy? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that then. Thank you very much. Right. Support for traders, proposed by Miles Langstone. Can I hand over to you, Miles?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So this is something which has been really fast moving just because of the circumstances around it. Obviously, from Monday this week, traders are able to go out, to operate outside, and we've been trying to work towards something to accommodate this in Mumbles. I've been having discussions with the council. I know there's generally a lot of support around this, and I've taken it through the COVID ops team, and obviously now for approval. So I'll just read through. There's a lot to it. So I'll just, without trying to bore everybody too much, I'll read through the background in full, and then read through the proposal just so it's quite clear what the situation is. I'll try not to sort of drag on for too long. So basically, the background is the traders at Mumbles Road, many operating from very small premises. Last assistance was operating outdoors in Southend Gardens. This is a scheme which Swansea Council have been very supportive with, providing the land free of charge and supporting with the relevant applications and licences. Now, the traders involved with this scheme would be Moore, the Front Room, Gower Seafood Hut, the Shared Plate, Tikuru, and the Carlton. So to progress this scheme, the traders needed to provide their own tables, public liability insurance for the area, management of the waste and policing in the area, and particularly with regards to the social distancing element. Traders will meet these obligations. However, there are, as they are small businesses, there are some that are facing most challenges at the moment, and they're in a difficult position with regards to fronting the indemnity insurance, the public liability, and they cannot purchase the picnic tables due to the cost associated with that. So alternatively, this aspect can be met by Mumbles Community Council. We can provide significant help to these independent traders at their time of need. Please be assured that if we did progress with this option, the responsibility for the day-to-day running would continue to lie with the traders. So the traders have put together a workable proposal. It utilises the area of Southend Gardens from the green space by the cenotaph to the end of the park, and then the final triangle bit where the Bouncy Castle is usually situated. Swansea Council have been part of this, the discussion throughout, happy with the proposal, and part of the process has been demonstrating that it's code secure, provision which ensure social distancing, wiping down tables and all that kind of thing. We'll also be putting up signage which advises which businesses are participating, encourages social distancing and everything else, and we'll also recognise the role of Mumbles Community Council in this and include the Mumbles Community Council logo. And also please be assured that use of South End Gardens will be reviewed by the Council on an ongoing basis. So this is not a measure, it's in place short term getting through this period. Because even if they are permitted to put the doors from the 3rd, most of these businesses will still got some business in indoors. So to help businesses we as community council commit to support treasures through purchasing picnic tables, umbrellas, seats, and guns. This proposal has been recommended to full council.
Miles, do you want to turn your video off so your bandwidth's a bit bad? Turn your video off.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'll. So it's a
bit Dalek-y, a bit Dalek-y.
Yes.
It's a win-win for you guys. Okay, so this proposal has been recommended by the COVID operations team. So 20 picnic tables have been purchased by Mumbles Community Council for Swansea Council's, from Swansea Council's provider, Second Life Products Wales. These tables are manufactured from recycled plastic and also heavily weighted to help against antisocial behaviour issues, which may arise if they could be easily moved around. The tables were purchased for £395 each. The retail rate is usually £469. They include holes for umbrellas in the middle, which provided free of charge and is usually £20 extra per table. And Paul Bynon advised that the provider, as it's been through Swansea Council procurement process, we could proceed with the order without having to satisfy further quotes. The full cost for these was £7,900. Due to the demand for picnic tables and incredibly short timeline that we've been working with, we've had a week or so to try to pull this together. The delivery date cannot be immediate, and we will receive these tables in stages. But to make up the shortfall, we've rented a further 10 tables until the end of the month at a cost of £400. The umbrellas were deemed necessary due to the risk of bad weather. We're currently waiting on Swansea Council to return with information from one of their suppliers. And due to the fact that we originally said there would be £9,000 allocated for tables and umbrellas, £8,300 has been spent on the tables already. So this leaves us with up to £700 to spend on those umbrellas. These items will be the sole property of Mumbles Community Council to use however we wish in the future, but to be committed to South End Gardens for the duration of this temporary scheme. Further to this, Mumbles Community Council is seeking to provide the indemnity insurance as the independent traders involved in the scheme are struggling to meet this level of commitment to public liability. We've received guidance actually within the last hour or so from One Voice Wales, which says we are permitted to provide this. This proposal agrees that if the guidance comes back positively, it has come back positively, Mumbles Community Council will take on the liability insurance. Obviously at this stage we don't have a quote for the cost involved with that, given how quickly this is moving, but hopefully if agreed, we'll take Paul's judgment on what it would be a reasonable amount to pay for this. So in the event that Mumbles Community Council does provide this insurance, it is agreed the traders led by Matt Heaven of Moore will take responsibility for the cleaning and monitoring of the area. And finally, the Community Council will contribute to the costs of security to ensure that antisocial behaviour issues do not arise. This is a concern for residents in the area, particularly in light of what has happened in other areas. This is a strong commitment that shows that the Community Council and the traders involved are committed to progressing with this scheme in a responsible way. The cost for security is £12.90 per hour. It's calculated that we need cover for up to 21 hours per week at a cost of £541.80 to security personnel. At least half of this will be met by the traders. So the Community Council agrees to meet half of the funding until the 6th of September at a total cost of £2,150 when it will be reviewed, and this will be used. This will be sort of employed at the peak points, your weekends. So a total of £11,150 of funding to be retrospectively approved by Mumbles Community Council. £9,000 will be allocated from the economy budget, which pays for the picnic tables and umbrellas, and the remainder, a minimum of £2,150, will come from contingency funds. So that was split as I said. I can go through that again. So it was 8,300 for the picnic tables, 700 up to 700 for the umbrellas, 2,150 for the security services, and currently the costs are unknown for the insurance. So the reason all of this had to be actioned prior to the meeting was due to the very short time frame. They've had 4 months out of business, and another weekend. While it may seem like just another weekend, it's more time that they're going to be struggling, and we could potentially be losing local businesses and local jobs. So with the announcement that the 13th was their permitted time frame, we had to act incredibly quickly to get this sorted. And that's that.
Okay, thank you very much for a very comprehensive report, Miles. Can I bring Steve in the first instance here?
Yeah, just Mars's latest version is in OneDrive and hopefully is now synced. At the bottom of that is the advice that we've had from the NAUC solicitor, Gary Barker. What we wanted from NAUC was some advice on what powers we had to do this, because we don't have explicit powers to help businesses. He's gone through that, and obviously buying the tables, that's a legitimate thing for us to do for our festivals and so on. And adding something to insurance, we have powers to do an insurance. But the security guards, he's recommending we use the power of well-being. And when you do that, I think this is the first time we've done it for a while anyway, we need to note that in our resolution today and explain why we feel that it's for the well-being of our residents.
Yeah, okay. Rebecca?
Yeah, I was just going to second the proposal. I think this is a really important part of our COVID recovery. So yeah, really happy to support it. I just had a quick question around the insurance logistics. If we are paying for the insurance, does that mean that we are insured? Are we insured on behalf of the traders? How does that work?
So, I mean, Paul, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, the way it's planned to work is that MCC will actually rent the land from Swansea Council. So we will become then the owner of the land, the user of the land for the period that this is going on. So it's on that basis that I will be asking our insurers to add that parcel of land to our insurance policy for the length of this scheme.
Okay, Will?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thank you, Miles, and everyone else who's put a lot of hard work into this. I think, I mean, COVID aside, I mean, even before COVID, we look at Mumbles and a lot of people say, oh, look, it's thriving, and you come down here, you see Oyster Wharf and things like that. But I think a lot of our smaller businesses have suffered, Newton Road and further down, and it's such an important part of our town, our village, to support. So we should be doing everything we can in these tricky times for these traders. The only thing that I think I'd like to just, from experience, because I've had experience in an event catering. We have a lot of event catering at our shows. It's very what will happen. These tables are going to be put on grass, right? And the grass, theoretically, the council are going to cut the grass. The council are going to be asked to move these tables to cut underneath the grass. That's not going to happen. So there's a couple of lots of little things which will crop up, and I just want to know what the plan is to deal with those sort of, rather than reviewing in September. I think we should be, you know, monitoring it from the off really, and just want to see if something's in place for that.
So you mean basically, look, making sure that the tables are not ruining the grass?
No, yeah, lots of things. I mean, there'll be loads of little things that crop up with this site, right? And someone will need to take a lead on it. It's not that, you know, we provide the tables and then go, you know, I know you're very proactive in this area, so I'm not, you know, for one instance suggesting that you're not going to do it, but there might be other things, other costs, other things that crop up, you know, and are we aware of that, and who, you know, are you going to lead on that, and, you know, go down there and check out there?
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I've been doing a lot on it up to this point, and I'm happy to continue with that. And obviously the agreement that we've got is that Matt, who's from Moore, will be taking roles. So I'll be conversations with him as well about that.
Great. Okay. Cool. Sounds good. Well done.
Okay. Can I bring Richard in and then Carrie? Richard first.
Yeah. Fully support what everyone said. And all I want to add is this. Local community, if they're saying, what are you doing with our money? Is this a good use of public money? I think it is, you know. So I'm just putting my support behind it.
Just on that, I think we can quite confidently say that this is a good use of public money. In local businesses, independent businesses, and many jobs with that as well. I mean,
totally agreed.
The risk is a boarded up mumbles otherwise. So.
Yeah.
Okay, Richard. Carrie?
Yeah, just obviously confirm, obviously this was discussed at length in the COVID ops team, and we are all, I think, on that team completely in support of this. I think it's a brilliant idea. There's still that little niggle, which I know we discussed at length last week. You know, what happens if someone is injured, or, you know, there is an accident or something happens on that piece of land? We are, you know, is it down to our insurance? You know, I'm just that little bit worried that we might end up being liable for anything that actually happens on there. And I don't know if, I know Paul was going to sort of try and get some clarification from the insurance company about how that would work. Did we get any kind of reassurance that we wouldn't find ourselves being sued for millions of pounds?
Yeah, no, nothing's happened yet, because I was waiting for that advice to come back from One Voice Wales that we did have the powers to do it. So now that advice has come back late this evening, I'll contact the insurers tomorrow to check that out.
Right, and just the other thing, which is a sort of practicality, which I think none of us have actually stopped to think about. Presumably on the 6th of September, we will be in possession of 20 picnic tables and nowhere to put them. Because presumably Swansea Council could quite legitimately say, oi, give us our grass back. So we do need to have some kind of thought in place as to where we can actually store 20 large picnic tables.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair point. A totally fair point. Obviously, the issue that we were dealing with was we had to get them in place.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, because otherwise the whole scheme just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
But actually, I think if we are looking towards a point in September where the council says this is not something we want to see in the long term, and this is just for the short term, perhaps we can all start looking at areas across Mumbles where there's, you know, and because picnics, I mean, particularly when we were looking at Underhill Park and the play gardens there.
Yeah.
You know, if we had picnic tables handed to us then, fantastic, you know. So there's definitely going to be causes around Mumbles, I hope, that we can get use of these.
I certainly think we should, you know, there's places like Castle Acre, there's West Cross Village Green, you know, there's quite a range of actually places which it would be quite nice to have picnic tables on. It's just we need to make sure that we keep track of where they are, so when we need them for things like Mumbles Fest, we can gather them all back up and take them to where we need them.
Okay. Pam, who's looking very film noir, if you ask me.
Bins. Have you worked out who's paying for the bins and who's emptying the bins? I know you said there's lots of little things you haven't put.
Yes. So just on the bins, that is down to the traders. It is their responsibility to be providing bins, clearing their bins, making sure the area is totally up to scratch. And the point is, this is not operational in normal times. They have to go above and beyond that basic level of commitment. They've got to be wiping down the tables constantly. They've got to be making sure that area is looking fantastic all the time. So that's definitely going to be squared away with, and they wouldn't get approval from Swansea Council otherwise.
Great.
Okay. Anybody else want to come in now? I think we're all okay on this then. So I think we're okay to pass this. Everybody seems to be in support. Okay. I just think obviously there needs to be certain things clarified when it comes to insurance and issues like that, which I'm sure Paul will be on top of. Just let me get my computer up again. Review of COVID-19 support.
Martin,
yes, that's correct. Go on, Miles.
So just yes, very quickly, I just wanted to say, obviously this is fantastic news. We're waiting. Obviously, we're hoping tomorrow we will finally have the launch dates clarified. So I was just going to say, can we hold tight on announcements until we've got a launch date? Because obviously the businesses want to make sure that it's done in the right way, so that people know exactly when it's happening.
Can we make sure that all the councillors know, and as many of us as possible actually go down there and support it when it's launched?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a big launch for that then.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so can we move? Oh, sorry, Adam. Sorry. Adam?
Over to past conversations, is there something we can do with SA1 to launch it? Preemptive for Claire in terms of announcements.
Yeah. Well, this this was something that SA1 brought up before. The more forewarned that they can be, the better they'd be when it comes to making announcements on our social media and our websites or whatever. So I think that, yes, that's a very good point, Adam. I think we need to be contacting Claire about this ASAP. So point number 10, review of COVID-19 support.
Martin, Steve's got his hand up now.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see Steve up there.
Sorry, Chair.
It's difficult.
As I alluded to earlier, the advice from the NOUT solicitor was that we should, when we're using the wellbeing power, we should minute our decision on the basis for the use of the power of wellbeing. So we need to come up with a few words to explain why we think it's to the benefit of the community.
We say it's economic well-being.
Yeah, we can't just sort of stick, this is economic well-being on the end.
No.
It's also social well-being.
Social
It certainly is.
Economic and social cohesion of the community. Yeah.
It's also cultural.
I think we can definitely.
Yeah, cultural.
Yeah, we can bring everything into it, I think, because it's something, I mean, it's people's mental health and well-being, having the opportunity to be able to go out and, enjoy themselves. I mean, all of those things are really important.
What sort of thing are you looking for, Steve? Are you just looking for a number of words?
Exactly what you guys have just given me. That's fine.
Right.
Well, you're okay with that then. Okay, so now we can move on then. Review of COVID-19 support, Rebecca?
Thanks, Chair. As you may have read in my report a couple of weeks ago, the COVID operations in terms of the immediate support that we've been offering has definitely dwindled to almost no requests. So we just want to use this opportunity really to take stock, think about what we've learned, what's gone well, and make sure that we are fully prepared for, hopefully this won't happen, but just in case there is a second wave, we want to be fully prepared to stand up everything that we had in place for the first wave. We want to be able to get that on the ground really rapidly, and we don't want to miss this opportunity to be able to do that. And also at a very early point when we started our COVID-19 operations, the point was made by other councillors that, you know, actually, although it happens rarely, a pandemic can occur at any moment, and that a good legacy of this work would be for us to leave really clear sort of guidance about, you know, what the community council can do effectively and safely for the community. And so we just think that having a full service evaluation of what we've done so far will enable us to leave that behind. So as I say, hopefully not for use in the immediate future, but there in case we need it in the winter, but also to be held on file for future community councils should there be any sort of pandemic or indeed other environmental disaster where an emergency response is required. So we were discussing this in the COVID-19 ops team meeting, and our officers kindly informed us that Alan Thomas, who's been doing the evaluation work so far, has not used all of the £10,000 that he was originally allocated to do the evaluation work with full council. So the proposal is that we repurpose some of that underspend to extend his scope to look specifically at the COVID-19 operations as kind of a specific part of the work that we've been doing over the last few months. We've had a quote in from Alan, which I received after I put the proposal together, and I think it was for £2,200, which fits very comfortably into what Alan has told us he's got left. So there will be no additional commitment from council to what we're already expecting. It would just be repurposing money that's already been agreed.
Okay. And if I could just add, we have in fact also, as you can see at the end of the proposal, put in a bid to the Wales and West COVID-19 Response Fund for an additional £4,000, some of which would also be to actually be able to extend that work that he's doing, to actually also look at how we can give ongoing support to people. There's still a lot of people who have a lot of anxiety, a lot of concerns, who are still afraid to go out. So if we get that money, we would be looking at him being able to also do some work around how we can ensure that we provide that kind of support to improve people's well-being, for the power of well-being, you know, as lockdown slowly eases and people need reassurance and support in actually getting back to their normal lives again.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, the whole purpose of Alan's employment in the first place was to look at our processes and structures. We didn't know at that point what was going to be down the line. And of course, how we respond to something like that is part of our processes and structures. And also, you know, again, echoing Rebecca's point here, if we don't capture it now, if we don't evaluate now, it's just going to disappear into the ether, and the lessons learned will be lost. So personally, I think it's very important. Richard?
Yeah, totally agree. I know some people think, oh, this is a pandemic, the first one we've had like this in 100 years, we won't have another one. Well, not true. There's a lot of scientific evidence suggesting we can have more pandemics. That's where we are, sadly. So I think, well, I fully support this proposal.
And also it's the whole sort of thing about how a council responds to something that it hasn't planned for.
Yeah.
Will?
Yeah, I think Richard makes a good point there. I mean, it's very much what we shouldn't have is a report that sits on a shelf that gets forgotten about in 5 councils' time when this happens, that they don't know it's there. So we got to also find a way of making sure this is almost like a live document that, you know, is, you know, things like, for example, keeping a constant volunteer database live in the community, you know, somewhere on the website where people can register to volunteer for various things constantly, so that we've always got that resource rather than having to go out. It's there constantly, you know, things like that. But that'll come out in the review, I'm sure.
Okay, anybody else want to make any points? Linda, I think, is trying to come in, is she?
Yeah, when I was doing the phoning, one of the things that was prominent was the fact that people knew about the prescription service, and it was vital to them by the doctor's surgeries and by the chemists. So I think that is one vital thing. And the other thing that was quite pertinent, really, quite impressive, was the fact that someone said, I knew this person vaguely, and I know she has a lot of problems, psychological problems. And she said that one of the things that meant so much to her was the fact that the Numbers Community Council were at the end of the line, the volunteer service, that she could phone them at any time. She didn't need to phone them, but just knowing that she could reach out to somebody. So I think that those two things, to me, were most important, that I really feel that, the feedback, that should be part of the feedback. I know there are lots of other things, but when I was phoning people, those are the two things that made an impression on me.
Okay.
So,
Rob?
No, just to echo what Linda said, I had exactly the same thing on the phone when I was asking. It was the very first question on the questionnaire. Where did you hear about this? From the doctor's surgery. They'd rung the doctor's surgery, not even seen the advert there, but they'd rung the pharmacy for help, and they'd been told about MCC. And a lot of the people who've used this service are the elderly and people living alone who don't use the internet and stuff like that. So it's getting the message across to them in a way that they can access. So I think the leaflet certainly, would need to continue again if we had a problem, and also through the pharmacies, letting the pharmacies and doctor surgeries know.
Okay. Carrie?
Yeah, obviously, yes, I'm obviously completely in support of this. I've been working on it. I know it might, everyone might give a groan, but perhaps we should actually think of having some sort of subcommittee who, maybe it could be the COVID team would sort of morph into it, but to have someone who actually does make sure that this document is kept live, that actually makes sure that it's updated, it's being acted on, and anything else that does come in, that we make sure we build that into some sort of emergency response strategy. So I just think, as Will said, we don't want it to just be something that sits on a shelf, collects dust, and nobody takes any notice of. And if there's some councillors who are directly responsible for it, then there's less chance of that happening.
Okay, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would suggest that it starts off with the COVID ops team. My dream is that we will have some sort of emergency response strategy that, we could review every year. You can even do, those sorts of connections that we've made with parts of Swansea Council, doctors, pharmacies, different shops. We don't want to lose those connections either. So, recommendations around how we can maintain those channels of communication, I think would be really good. But I think if we just keep it with COVID ops for now, I think we'll be reviewing the purpose of that group in the near future. We may well come back to council to offer the opportunity to be part of the next phase if you feel that's something you'd like to do. I think I would be comfortable with it sitting with us for now.
Okay. So can we accept that recommendation that we, we can go forward with that.
Could I just add one more little piece of good news, Martin? For information. For information for full council, we've been recognised with a certificate of appreciation by Mumbles Rotary Club, and I'll be getting a social distanced presentation of that on Friday, and making sure it goes on the website and things, because it's not just, obviously Mumbles Community Council is the name on the certificate, but it's been such a community effort. So yes, do share that news with any volunteers you come into contact with, because it's their effort as much as ours.
And it's lovely bit of news, that. So, okay, going on to point 11, statue. We've got a proposal by Rob Marshall. Do you want to talk to this, Rob?
Yeah. It's something that I brought to the Culture Committee when we rebranded as Culture and Tourism. When we talked about it there, people seemed very positive about it. And also Adam put it up on social media as well, and had hundreds of people in agreement with it. And I think one person against it who eventually came round to it. So basically, we all know Margaret Thrush. She is a legend. She is MBE, deservedly so, through her own tireless efforts in fundraising for other people, with not the hint of any personal gain for herself. She does it, you know, she is a local legend. So the proposal is to have a statue of her outside Ostream, which can be a tourist attraction. I mean, people have come from America to see Margaret and heard about her over the internet and whatever. And also we could have a collection box there as well to raise money in the days in the future, sad days when she is no longer with us. It could be the Margaret Thrush Memorial Fund to be raise money for community projects. But I just think, you know, for somebody who is such a local legend, who has done this for over 60 years, I think it would be lovely for us to have a statue there while she is still with us. I mean, she's 79 now, and I think it would just be really fitting, a tourist attraction. Everybody knows Margaret. I think the community would absolutely get behind this.
Okay. I just like to come in. One thing on this is probably people in the council don't know, but I've been very much involved, not very much involved, but I have been involved in a campaign that we had in Cardiff to get a statue for Betty Campbell, who was head teacher in the Butetown area of Cardiff, in outside Central Square in Cardiff. And to be honest, I've got to admit, when we first started this, I really thought we wouldn't have a hope in hell, but it's been okay now. It's the people are looking forward to it now. And I think this is the issue we're going to address here, is although that it's been agreed that a statue to Betty Campbell is going up in Central Square in Cardiff, is funding it is going to be another issue. So does anybody else want to come in on this? Richard?
Yeah, fully supported. As I said to Adam while ago, providing there's no links to slavery.
We'll have to check it out on that one. And it's quite close to the sea as well, isn't it? Can I bring Will in and then?
Yeah, I think it's a nice idea, and I'm not by any means against it. I just wonder if we're going about this the right way. You know, I understand that Margaret is the most iconic person probably in the village, but are we qualified to make that decision and, you know, put that down? Like, should we be doing a bit of consultation, or, you know, having a more in-depth, you know, research discussion first? Secondly, you go on, Rob. Yeah.
I was just going to come back into you on that, Will. First of all, I think, you know, from the consultation we've done online already, I think there's an overwhelming support for this project to go. All we're asking for at the moment is that the idea be approved. I mean, it can be put into next year's budget. We're not asking for money straight away. We've got to go away and cost it. We could even get a local sculptor to actually build it. And we say, right, this is how much we've got to spend on this project. We want you to commission a statue, whatever, have a competition for that. You know, all we're trying to do at the moment is get the idea off the ground so the council supports it. I think we are the right people to do it, because who else is going to get off their asses and do it otherwise? Basically, we are.
Yeah. Okay. The other thing I'd just like to say is that regarding the funding side of things, I mean, these the Iverall Church statue outside the Liberty Stadium. I don't quote me on this, but where I was working for Martin Morgan at the time when that was made, I think that was about 60,000 quid. So they're not, you know, they're not cheap, these things. And maybe, like as Martin said, you know, heritage lottery bid, that sort of thing, or crowdfunding, those sorts of things, they will come out, and I'm sure, I have every faith that you'll get there with the funding. I just think personally, I'd vote for it, right? But I'd like to see a little bit more consultation, as to it sets a bit of a precedent. Okay. As to why it feels to me that it's just been a little bit plucked and rushed, but that's just an opinion.
Okay, I'll bring Ian, Rebecca, and then Pamela. So Ian first, please.
Yes, well, thank you, Chair. And I must say it's a very interesting one, this. Now, Margaret, I know Margaret as well as Rob does, and others who are residents in Newton. She does carry an extremely high profile throughout the Mumbles area in her efforts to raise a substantial, in fact, an incredible amount of money for worthy causes. However, there are others who choose to do good deeds. And I think it would be fair to say they perform and they also act, shall we say, a little bit discreetly. Now, to single out Margaret because of the way that she perhaps conducts herself would be unfair in the sense that, that's just Margaret, that's the way that she is. Now, to attempt to replicate Margaret in the form of a statue, I think that in itself would be a bit maybe condescending to Margaret, because inevitably one would want to have the sombrero and the baggy shorts and the Welsh dragon and everything else. Now, I'm all for her being recognised as a worthy contributor to the community in different ways. Personally, I think a tree would be more acceptable to be placed somewhere within the Mumbles area, possibly outside the Ostream Hall, because there's one that's actually died there. And in addition to that, it could have a plaque, something that's been done very nicely. It could be on Welsh slate, something similar to what was done to the twinning in Hennebont. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a statue. I'm a little bit concerned about the statue, because if we set this sort of precedent, we are perhaps ignoring the efforts of those that have acted a little bit more discreetly. That's all I've got to say.
Okay, can I bring in Rebecca now and then Pamela?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a lovely idea. I suppose I would support the opportunity for the public to nominate, anybody, and we could have a sort of public vote. I know that the Facebook post that went up had so much support, but it was only about her. So there wasn't that opportunity to think about anybody else that might want to be recognised. And I suppose it would be good for us to think in the longer term about a way of marking people so that it can continue. It's not just a one-off. I hadn't thought of the idea of a tree, Ian. I like that. It's sort of good for the environment. And you could still have a collection box of some description next to the tree, because I thought that was a really nice touch as well, Rob. But I definitely would welcome that opportunity for us, just so that it's a bit more inclusive of others, perhaps. And it may well be, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Margaret still comes out as the top choice, but at least it's been through a bit more of a public process.
Ian wants to come back on that.
Yeah, if I could just come in, it's the idea of a tree, it does sit very well with Margaret, because I'm sure Robert will remember that the rear of her property backs onto Whitestone Lane, and the neighbour, there's a very large tree at that juncture, and the neighbour wanted to take down this substantial tree, and Margaret chained herself to the tree, so it couldn't be felled. So it was quite a thing. So I think there's certain advantages in perhaps having a tree. It could be an oak tree. I'm not just talking about any old tree. It could be something that's rather special that could have a prominence at the Ostream, but you know, that's just my perception of it. You know, I have a great deal of time for Margaret, I can assure you. I talk to her quite often. And so there you go.
Well, it could be an idea to put in the tree there with that wonderful story, to be honest. Pamela?
You're on mute.
You're on.
We need to be able to show the process that we've gone through in choosing Margaret to justify that. But is it somebody else going to want another statue the following year?
Yeah.
Well, that's another benefit of the tree, right? We could have an orchard.
Well, absolutely, I agree. That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Margaret is the scariest woman I know, and I think she's fabulous. But have we provided the process by which we arrived at Margaret? I think it's a super idea.
Yeah.
Can we just have some kind of a process we showed that we did consider other people and she came out on top? And I think that's important.
That's what happened with Betty Campbell. Anyway, can I bring Robin and then Carrie?
Okay.
And then
well, thank you Ian, for the kind words about Margaret as well. I mean, all the comments that we had on the Facebook post that went out was, so when we're talking about due diligence and how are we excluding other people, people saying, I can think of nobody else more worthy. I can't think of anybody better to be honoured in this way. That was all that came back on every post, bar the one. You know, there are a lot of people who have done things for the community. I mean, look, Bonnie Tyler has taken the name of Wales all over the world, as has Zita Jones. But what they haven't done is do it for their own sacrifice with no gain. They've both gained very well financially out of taking their names across the world. Margaret, I don't know anybody else who's raised anything like as much for charity as Margaret has. You know, everybody knows her, the one with the sombrero. I really do think if we had a statue there with a sombrero on it, it would be a fantastic tourist attraction for people. And I would like to go down the road. I do think she would like a tree as well. Maybe we can have a statue of her trained to a tree. I don't know, but I think, you know, some permanent memorial of Margaret, so that when we're all dead, people come to the village and say, who's that woman there? And or who's that man there, they might say. I don't know. But you know, we could there's lots of stories about Margaret, and I think to immortalize her would be a fantastic thing.
Okay, can I bring Carol in? Carrie?
Yeah. First of all, I think you know, I do agree with Will that yes, you've had a Facebook post, but it wasn't an MCC Facebook post. I think we need to make sure we cover our backs in case people say, why are you doing this? You know, let's get the consultation from the community council, and at the same time, you know, start sort of sowing the seeds of the idea of financial contributions, people who want to put some money in to putting into some sort of permanent memorial to her. So I think, you know, just to formalize it, you know, the results will probably be the same, but at least then we can say the community council asked people and this is what they said. And then the second thing is I just like thinking out of you know, as we go along, and you know, I agree with Ian that there probably are other people. So maybe rather than a statue, I like the idea of a tree. Perhaps we should actually start paving the outside of the Ostream with slate plaques to different people.
Yeah, that's an amazing idea.
You know, each sort of person who's really important and contributed to the village, there is a paving,
like a Hollywood walk,
up, you know. And then we could have a tree as well, and have a sort of famous people orchard or whatever, and then all the plaques around the Ostream to all the different people who in one way or another have contributed to the village.
Okay, I'll bring in Adam now, then Will, then Linda. Adam first. Oh, sorry, Mo.
I do concur that there does need to be due process, and we're all very confident Margaret would get the vote. So the more process, as Carrie said, actually be a funding opportunity. I did some research and spoke to a couple of tenders unofficially, and they came in around 10, 15, 20,000 pounds for a small one. So with funding, it is really an opportunity. Just a couple of points. I recognise there are a number of other people about. However, I think Margaret Rush is head and shoulders and would have the public support. I don't really think this starts a precedent. If we do one, no one's really expecting us to put statues up all over Mumbles in reality. The reason I say a statue is because it's outlandish. It's out there. It's a big idea. There's 20, 30 trees. Oysmap School has, that's the lifeboat. Know that. The reason I say it's Porthcawl lifeboat going out on the scanner, not me. The reason I say a statue is that the number of trees already going off. So a statue gets people here. It's outlandish, it's a tourist attraction, it's something to talk about. A tree, respectfully, there's loads of them, nobody cares. Hollywood Boulevard, there's loads of plaques. It has to be something to grab attention, be beneficial.
Okay.
Could I ask that we adjourn the meeting and stop recording? I just want to.
Yes, Steve, can you stop recording, please? Everybody's in agreement. Because the thing is, we're going to come to a decision. Yeah, okay, we're back on now. So as I said, just to reiterate, because the recording's back on now, can we put it back to the tourism committee that they explore the possibility of honouring people from the Mumbles area, the Mumbles, and look at the various possibilities, which might include the tree, the plaques, and statues, and we decided how to take it forward from there.
I would say, Martin, the answer is yes and no. Yes, it can come back to the tourism committee, but to honour people, I would like that taken out of it, because this motion is about honouring a particular person who has gone above and beyond what anybody else has done. The honour of Mumbles isn't high enough for what Margaret has done and the money she's raised, and that's why I brought this here. So I'm quite happy to take it back to the committee and talk about who we can have for honour of Mumbles or other awards, but I still want to put this forward, that a statue of Margaret, because as I say, what she has achieved and what she stands for in this community on so many different levels is so much higher than an honour of Mumbles.
Okay, then, well, if you put it back, that you explore the possibilities of honouring Margaret, and we look at the various possibilities and the various sorts of costings that could be involved and the various options for funding that. Is that okay with people?
With that?
Yeah.
And then if it comes back, then if there are any other concerns, then we can raise them then.
Okay.
So we'll if we've got any concerns about due process, we'll bring them back after an idea of budget has been sorted.
Yes, and the process is that we would need to go forward with that. As
Yeah.
I was involved in the campaign for the statue of Betty Campbell in Cardiff. When I look back at that, there were 3 possibilities of who the statue could be, and those 3 possibilities were put to people, and then there was a vote that was held on that. There was a public vote that was held on that. So, you know, that's just an issue that was held there.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing we need.
Yeah.
Actually, Martin, can we go for a vote on this going back to be about Margaret, please? Can we have a vote about that?
It's about the commitment, really, commitment to honour Margaret, which we're looking for.
Yeah.
So commitment to honour Margaret. So we look at something, a commitment to honour Margaret, is it? So we have a vote on that. All those in favour of looking at honouring Margaret.
Sorry, Chair. That's word. I don't like the wording of that, because
no.
Okay, we'll have one on the original proposal then.
Yeah. What do you mean? So you're talking about specifically Margaret in this.
On the proposal,
and specifically a statue.
As on the proposal on the paper, a vote.
Oh, right. Okay.
So are we talking now specifically a statue or specifically Margaret?
A statue.
The proposal is on paper.
A statue of Margaret.
But hang on, based on everything that's been discussed, I don't think we're in a position to do that.
It's on the agenda. Can we vote for what's on the agenda?
You can, of course, yeah. We can.
Yes, you can, yeah. Rebecca, I think, wants to come in.
Well, I just think the problem with doing that is that if it doesn't pass tonight, we can't bring it back for 6 months.
Yeah,
Give us
that's
time
right.
for due process, and we can actually change and look at it. If it hasn't passed, it's not appropriate for us. We can go back and do a plaque, a tree, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
What do I do?
So we're voting in favour of, we're voting about the statute. Can those who are in favour of the statute indicate now? All those against? I think the against is taken, Steve, am I correct? Oh,
I think so, yeah.
okay then. Okay, so moving on to recommendations. Point 12, recommendations.
Yeah, before you go on, I think we need to is there a resolution on this at all then? Is it being referred back, or is it just the proposal was not passed?
I think the proposal was not passed, and then it goes back to the proposals to maybe come back with a different proposal as was discussed earlier on. Is that okay with everybody?
Well, we just spent 20 minutes saying what other information we need before we can legitimately say we want this to Margaret. So if that's
and
put in process,
yeah,
isn't it?
that's what would be coming back if it comes back again in the next 6 months. So, okay. Recommendations made by the Environmental Wellbeing Committee. Carrie, do you want to come in on that?
Yep. Okay. Right. Well, the first one, things have sort of slightly moved on since we discussed this. What we were talking about is having some sort of banners up on at Caswell and Langland to try and discourage littering. But in fact, Swansea Council have sort of beaten us to it. And there is, in fact, quite a significant number of different signs and posters that they have put up about, you know, only leave your footprints, take your litter home. So I'm not sure whether it's actually necessary for us to actually add to those by, you know, there's a point at which we would just, people would stop noticing them because there is so many. So really it's kind of up to you as to what you think. But as I say, having made the proposal, which at the time was relevant, when we were at the litter pick on Saturday, we became aware that Swansea Council had actually done quite a lot about putting up various different signs and things. So I'm happy either way. I'm happy to go ahead with it, but people may feel that perhaps there is sufficient there now for us not to need to add our own as well. So that's point one, if we want to just have a comment on that.
Rebecca, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I haven't been down Langland at the weekend. I think we probably don't need to add our own signs, but I did have an interesting conversation with one of the people who was down there for the litter pick about specifically the fact that Langland is, and many others I'm sure, are no smoking beaches, but of course people continue to smoke. And cigarette ends take decades to decompose. And so they were just saying, you know, could we have something specific about cigarette ends? And I think that was probably the area where we could add value. People probably don't even think of it and just flick them away.
Yeah.
Okay. Ian? You're muted.
You're on
Ian.
mute.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think it could be a bad reflection of Caswell and Langland if we had too many banners saying take your rubbish home and everything else. You know, people will sort of choose to ignore it and they'll wonder where on earth have they come to. Interesting what Rebecca has said, actually. I did speak with someone about at the Clean, and they were also talking about these cigarette filters because there is a plastic within them, and you know, it is a problem. So perhaps if one is going to, or chooses to go for some sort of banner, perhaps they could, you know, focus on this business of the cigarette filters. But it would be a little bit different. But how on earth can you prevent it, really, other than banning people smoking in and on the beach or the surrounding area?
Well, they
You know,
are
that-
actually banned at the moment, and there is a sign, but it's really not very big and not very prominent. It's just
There's
on,
a ban on, I beg your pardon, there's a ban
there's
on
a ban
smoking?
on smoking on the
Yeah.
beach. That's already in force.
Well, it's
Well, I
not
don't-
enforced.
Well, it's
Well,
not
no.
enforced.
It's
Quite
already,
obviously it's not.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm just making a point. You know, I think perhaps that's something that one could home in on. Have a banner to the effect that don't leave your butt ends.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Well, it's certainly perhaps a reminder that it is a non-smoking beach, and perhaps, you know, perhaps as much as anything, it might be to say to Swansea Council, you've brought this in as a bylaw, so please can you make sure you've got some slightly more prominent and more obvious signs.
So, okay, so what are we proposing here is that a sign specifically about smoking on the beach be provided?
Rob?
If he said this
Rob?
is a no smoking area, that would be his claim.
How can a public beach be an outdoor space be classed as non-smoking?
Because it was passed as a bylaw by Swansea
yeah.
Council.
As a bylaw, they can, yes, I'm sure. Rob.
Yeah.
Nobody pay any attention to it, though, are they?
Well, most people do, yes.
Well, most
Rebecca, one at a time, though. Can we have Rebecca and then Will, maybe?
Yeah, sorry, I've opened a can of worms here. I don't think this is urgent enough for us to be discussing at full council. Let's refer it back to environmental.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds fair enough.
Will
Can I just to give people an update on, I know obviously I wasn't able to go to the litter pick, just some of the things which are happening. There's obviously more beach cleaners being put on from a couple of weeks ago. And there's going to be a litter picking station, one of the beach cleaning A-frames going in, which has been privately raised by the lady Maddie and Helen something. Maddie knows her. And that Langland Brads.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Langland Brads are going to look after that. It's going to have a litter picker in there. That's all good. And Langland Lifeguards are obviously, I'm sure you've all seen, doing a lot of educating of people and youngsters sitting in groups. So there are things happening there.
Okay, then. So can we resolve that we push this back to environmental?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. That's
Okay,
good. Yep. Happy with that.
So,
Okay.
plastic-free mumbles.
Right. Sorry. Yes. Plastic-free mumbles. This is obviously an initiative that it's a quite a specific set of requirements that you have to fulfill in order to be able to declare yourself as a plastic-free village, area, whatever. So we are just asking that can we start that process to actually declare ourselves as somewhat as an area working towards plastic-free mumbles.
Yeah.
So these are the different things that obviously we have to do. The first one is just saying, you know, can we have a website?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, £75, you know, which is not a huge amount. And then that we pass the following resolutions: that we lead by example and remove single-use plastic items from the premises and operations. Well, our premises are not in use at the moment, but you know, this is something we actually agreed to a year, 18 months ago, and it's kind of slipped. So I think it's just a matter of reiterating that we make sure that we do not use single-use plastic in any of MCC's formal events in any shape or form. Sorry, Rob, yeah?
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, a couple of things, Carrie. if you can respond to them all at the end, because
Oh.
I'm much in support of us reducing our plastic waste in every form we can. Now, with shops like Tesco, Co-op, M&S, Cheers, all your newsagents, how are we going to encourage them, A, to stop selling water in plastic bottles when it forms part of their profit, and the same for the ready meals that they serve as well in plastic?
That's obviously part of part two.
Do you want to come back after I've...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So with instant drinks, you know, people don't always want water. Often they want carbonated drinks or juices. We can only provide water fountains. We can't provide Coke fountains or Lucozade fountains and stuff like that. So, and often when people are walking or they're going out, they want an instant quenching hit, and then they can dispose of the bottle. They don't want to be carrying around cooler bottles with them and stuff like that. Now, I'm often, when I come to rehearsals, I'm coming straight from work, straight from rehearsals, and stuff like that. If I was to turn up to an MCC meeting and I just popped into Tesco's or wherever to get a bottle of water because I hadn't had tea and I was thirsty, would I be excluded from the meeting? And if so, on what authority, as we are not a law-making body?
Do you want to respond, Carrie?
Yeah, sorry, I thought Rob said that to do it at the end. I mean, because obviously...
I think he's finished now. Have you, Rob?
Yeah. I don't think it's that difficult to actually have a reusable bottle in your pocket that you can fill from a tap before you come into a meeting, rather than bringing a single-use plastic bottle with you. So on that, I mean, that's, but I just feel it, particularly now we're being recorded, we're open to the public. We shouldn't be sitting there in a meeting with a load of plastic bottles, single-use plastic bottles in front of us. There are alternatives. As far as, you know, encouraging shops, you're right, it's an uphill struggle, but it's got to start somewhere. There are alternatives. There are means by which shops can take back empty bottles and recycle them themselves, so that they're using, if they do use plastic bottles, then they also are responsible for people being able to bring them back, and they have to dispose of them. You know, there's a lot of ways that it can be done. It doesn't just involve, you know, individuals saying, oh well, it's down to the shops and there's nothing we can do. You know, it's obviously, it would require us to do a lot of work, and obviously the COVID crisis has not helped us at all, because people are obviously now reluctant to pick up their own, you know, half a dozen oranges and have them loose in their bag. They want to see everything safely bagged up with in plastic, because they think it's going to be safer using it that way. So, you know, there's a lot of, it's an uphill job. We're not saying let's start this tomorrow. We're saying MCC make a commitment to working towards that being our goal, and that we start by using ourselves as an example and making sure that we don't use single-use plastic, and that we start working with local shops. I mean, some of them already, I mean, if you look at Gower Seafood Hut, Front Room, a couple of other places already, they only provide their takeaways in either foil or cardboard. They don't use any plastic. So there are alternatives. There are things out there, and there are businesses that are already using them. So it's not an impossible option. The big chains, the main supermarkets, obviously they're the hardest to crack, because no good going into your local co-op and saying, please don't use plastic, because, you know, they're provided with the things, and that's what they have to use.
Okay, Will, can I bring you?
At least if we can get our independent shops. I mean, and Will, yeah, I know, has already done some work with Surfside and got them involved in the campaign.
Okay, Will, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I think it's something I'm certainly very passionate about. I've got the traders down at Langland Bay to stop using plastic. And sorry, let me just ask my 8-year-old to stop talking a second. Thank you. Yeah, he's sitting at opposite side of my screen. So yeah, I mean Langland Bay, Langland Braz, and Nigel Surfside. To be fair, they had a great reaction from the public by doing it, and you know. They put it off for a long time, but they had loads of praise for doing it. So it just shows there is a commercial benefit for being green. You know, it's not all a cost exercise. You can get some goodwill out of it. Sorry, I can't quite concentrate at the moment because my son's here. I might come back in a second, Martin, when my brain's not working.
I was just going to say a couple of things I just wanted to raise here is the standalone website, plasticfreemumbles.org, at a cost of £75. Why do we need another website? Couldn't we fit it in with the websites we've already got? Or, you know, we've got a number on Facebook pages.
I think it was sort of Maddie just kind of maybe not explaining it well. I think what it would be a separate section of our MCC website. So you could click on a link from our website to Plastic Free Mumbles, but that would have like a whole separate input and information on it that wouldn't necessarily be on the main MCC website.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
kind of building a kind of sub website.
Yeah. I'm just going. I will be honest. Yeah, been looking at our website and our web presence, and I've been getting a little concerned that we're diluting our message a little bit. We've got shop mumbles, surfers against sewage, and you know, I'm not detracting from any of these issues, but you know, somebody contacted me just this week, to be honest, and sort of said they said our website was very good, fair play to them. But that they said that it wasn't very clear about where they needed to go for some of the information.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to review. Steve, did you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, just so clarification. Obviously, as Maddie's line manager, I've talked to her about this, and to clarify, she did want a separate website with its own domain name, Plastic Free Mumbles. So she did want it separate, not the BBC model, which you and I have talked about. I think one of the arguments for doing that she might not do is it's incredibly difficult to get anything done at the moment with our website.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, she's going to get so frustrated dealing with SA3 or whatever SA1, whatever they're called, because I certainly am.
Yeah, but this is something we need to sort out with SA1 because we're paying them good money.
Yeah, we are. We're paying them a lot of money.
Yes, that's what I mean. And you know, I don't think that should be an argument. This is an argument for us to sort things out with SA1.
Yeah,
because
I agree. I mean, I think if we're going to be funding a Plastic Free Mumbles website, it has to be part of the MCC presence.
Yeah,
but I do sympathise with Maddie, and I do understand her frustration in not being able to actually get information out there because it's got to go through so many stages first.
But you know, if we're going to go down this route of this Plastic Free Mumbles, then we need to really make sure that it's branded, that it is MCC Plastic Free Mumbles.
Absolutely.
You know, that it's not a separate organisation.
I totally agree.
I'm getting a little concerned, a bit frustrated about that. And I do think this is something that we need to maybe bring up as a matter of urgency with SA1, because as I said, we are paying them good money. You know, to be honest, you know, some of the work that they've done, I've looked at their portfolio, they do seem like they're a capable company.
Hello, Puss.
Pardon?
Hello, Puss.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Rob.
Oh, shit.
But, you know, I do think this is something that we need to sort out with SA1 maybe, you know, and talk about where this will fit in. Because as I sort of said, I am a little concerned when I go on our Facebook page with all these different pages on there, the different websites and all, our message, and you know, is this an MCC website? You know, with the Shop Mumbles one, it didn't seem that clear to me that it was an MCC webpage or just something
I agree.
we had some contact with. The same with the Surfers Against Sewage one. Again, fantastic initiative, but we need to brand it clearly as MCC.
Yeah, you're right.
So maybe this is something that we need to go back to SA1. And I'll tell you something else as well. I have mentioned this in passing. Is I've been approached by a student. He's not a student of mine, but he's a student I know from Cardiff University who's on holiday. Not on holiday, but he's finished for the year. And I think he might be somebody useful that we could bring in on something like this. He wants to do some voluntary work with us. So I think I might have a word with him if nobody's got any objections.
No, not at all.
Well, you know, we've got a volunteer. Let's use the guy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if they want to volunteer, whoa, absolutely. Take them on.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Rob, did you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, just to say, look, I am really supportive of this plastic-free thing, but we cannot dictate to the public. You know, we can't say we're going plastic-free when we know full well that supermarkets, because of their long life with their ready meals and stuff like that, are ever going to go plastic-free. They aren't. For the front room and the seafood place who are selling fresh food to go there, absolutely you can put it in to non-plastic. And the question about me wasn't answered, which was, if I turn up to a meeting and I've just come from rehearsal and I've got a plastic bottle of water with me, how am I going to be excluded from that meeting? You can't, because we cannot make laws.
If we've all agreed that that's how we want to conduct ourselves.
How we want, and we can encourage people to do things, but we can't dictate to them.
But surely you have a moral obligation to try and support that.
To try where possible.
Okay, can we get some order back there? I think as well in relation, I was going to bring this up, I think in relation to the wording of the motion is the whole sort of thing, we will encourage plastic-free initiative. And I think there's also the one I've got a bit of a problem with. We will lead by example and remove single-use plastic items from its premises and operations. I think that might be difficult for us to do, to be honest. And couldn't we do something like work towards?
Can we say aim to?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Something like that, aim to.
How
because
about encourage and support?
Okay, encourage and support. It's just as if we put that, I just see.
Well, I think aim to is more kind of defined. It's something we've got a specific intention to do.
End up being hoist by our own petard.
Use stronger language than that.
Okay.
Sorry, Pam, I still can't hear you.
Use stronger language than that.
Okay.
Well, let's say aim to, I think, is the minimum we should be looking at. You know, there isn't any reason why we as a community council sitting in our meetings need to use single-use plastic.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we bring Steve in? Steve had his hand up patiently for some time.
My understanding that these three notions are set by this Surfers Against Sewage plastic. So it's a binary thing. You either sign up to them as they're written or you don't.
Oh,
so we can't change aim to?
We can't
No,
change.
no, because you either sign up to that notion or you don't.
Oh, we don't.
Well, we do. Come on, let's take the bull by the horns and let's set an example of how we're going to do it.
I agree. I don't have a problem with just going for it.
You've got local schools walking into Tesco's 20 at a time and complaining to them in full publicity and full glare of everybody clapping on the Mumbles Road because they were doing it. Why can't we support it?
Just as a query then, Pam, could you answer Rob's question in relation to what happens if he turns up drinking from a one-use plastic thing, because we have said we will remove single-use plastic items from our premises and operations. Now I'm taking it Rob is part of our operations, and if he turns up then with a single-use plastic, what is the course of action then?
Well, presumably there'll be 19 of us not doing it and one person doing it, and hopefully then you succumb.
Okay.
If I could say, I would be more than happy to go into the kitchen, get a mug and offer it to him and say, here you are, you can empty your water into a mug and then you can remove your plastic single-use bottle from the MCC premises.
Good for you.
Okay. So, yeah. Anybody else want to come in now before we move this? So, if I say in relation to point 1, can we refer this back maybe to the JEC and to set up a meeting with SA1 to explore how we take this forward? Because as I said, we're paying them good money.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of thinking, why should we pay in another extra £75? Not that it's a great deal of money, but you know, I think maybe we should be taking it forward in relation to our corporate identity.
No, I agree with that. I think that's something that they need to be called out on.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that there is a way that we can actually do what we want to do without us being prevented from doing so by SA1.
It's eyeballs as well on the site. You know, we've got a lot of traffic on our site, so
Exactly.
you don't start a new website for every single operation.
Exactly.
We'll have a new website for shop mumbles and new for everything. We just need to structure the website better. That's all.
So I'll take the lead with that. I'll take this forward.
Okay, that'd be
I'll get in
great.
contact with Carway, and we'll set up other relevant people to set up another meeting with SA1. So then in relation to point 2, and the 3 recommendations, do we vote to accept those? Shall I put this to the vote? All those in favour of accepting these recommendations?
There's some people who aren't here.
But that's tough.
Well, that looks like it's accepted. So we will accept those recommendations. Okay, we got that in the end.
Okay, so just on that point, obviously we did make some suggestions about the representation on the plastic-free mumble steering group. The recommendation was that we have obviously myself as chair of the committee. We asked Mark Child to sit on it to represent Swansea Council, but we would like to have at least one other councillor who would like to actually be part of that group. So is there anyone who would like to put their hands up and volunteer to be on that Plastic Free Mumbles group?
I know Sarah, this is right up her street and she's not here this evening because she's just so busy at the moment. Can we leave that and ask her would she like to do it? Because she's the one who's pushed this within the council so hard.
Okay, so shall we say we'll take it back to Environment Committee to make a recommendation for the next meeting as to who should be on it?
Anybody got any objections to that?
And if anyone wants to do it, please contact me in the meantime and we can make sure that your name goes forward.
Okay.
Thanks
So
very much.
questions to the chair of the Environmental and Wellbeing Committee? No. Recommendations made by the Joint Enabling Committee. Carwyn's disappeared.
He has. He went a while back.
Yes, I know.
I don't know where he's gone.
Somebody upset him again? I don't know. Recommended that the signage budget be fired to the Cultural, Tourism and Wellbeing Committee. Rob, have you got any thoughts on that? Sorry to wake you up.
Oh, let me look at the agenda.
It's just that they're on about environment or the signage budget going to the cultural tourism.
Oh, yeah. Great.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's got any objection to that. Carrie? You muted?
In terms of procedure, I need to formally, or Steve needs to remind us that we've gone over time.
Okay. Come on, Steve, formally remind us. Do we have another 15 minutes?
Yeah, Chairman, you just need to pass a motion to suspend standing orders to allow the meeting to continue.
Can we suspend standing orders to allow the meeting to continue? I should think we should be finished within the next 10, 15 minutes.
Yes, please.
Okay?
Yep.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, so let's go crack on. So we're okay with the environment?
Yep.
Right. Alan Thomas report implementation. Now we've discussed this at length at a number of other meetings. You've had the report for quite some time now. Is there anybody want to raise any particular points, any objections, anything that they would want to comment on? I think pretty much we've agreed to a lot of this in the past, to be honest.
Can I just clarify, because people might be slightly confused by the amendments to job descriptions. Just to clarify, that we're saying that in future, any future job
descriptions will include partnership working and fundraising.
Yeah. So it's not talking about changing existing ones. No. It's a commitment to going forward.
Yeah, it's just a commitment to going forward and to include that in any future job description. So I think it's quite a good idea. So any other observations in relation to that? Any objections? So can I move it to a vote that we vote in favour of accepting these recommendations?
Those few of us who've got that.
Have we all got your hands up?
Yeah.
Right, or I think we could say that's carried. Questions to the chair of the Joint Enabling Committee? We can't have that because he's not here. Questions to the chair of the Community Social Wellbeing? Is Rebecca still with us? Or?
No. Oh,
yep.
Yes. She's just hiding.
Yeah, hi. I've come down for dinner. Sorry, guys.
So any chairs to any questions to the chair? No, there we go. We can move ahead with that then. Questions to the chair of the Cultural, Tourism and Wellbeing Committee?
Only an update on when you set up the business forum, Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, trade. Yeah, is that moved ahead or started? Or?
Yes, we've started. We've had our official. Adam is the chair. I'm the secretary, and we are visiting businesses in Mumbles at the moment with Claire, and a lot of them already are prepared to be part of it and pay towards it. And we're going to be offering training for them as well. So out of the money that they pay towards, they will get training, which we'll all organise through the council. So yeah, it's all going ahead. It's just limited to what you can actually do at the moment because of lockdown.
Okay, in the last full council meeting when we approved it, you did say you were going to make people aware of when you were doing it so they could put themselves forward to be on it, and I certainly didn't receive anything.
The only thing we've done is accept a chair and a secretary at the moment. That's all we've done. And Paul is going to be our treasurer as our RFO. But we haven't.
Yeah, but who can vote for the chair if there's no committee? Surely the committee would vote for the chair.
Mm.
Well, we can't do everything at once. You know, look, when we spoke about this, before we even brought it to full council, we'd spoken in the cultural committee, and we'd suggested Adam for chair, and it was unanimous that Adam would be the chair of it. The reason for that, as I explained in the last meeting, was that if we are controlling it from the start, then we're not going to have top shops against bottom shops and stuff like that. We're not going to have certain egos from other organisations thinking it should be me there. It means we are sort of doing it as a level playing field from the start.
Right, okay. If I'm 100% honest, this feels like a Labour Party psyop, and it's
not at all.
Well, that's what it feels like to me. Excuse me. Sorry, I was. Let me just ask the question.
We'll finish.
I'm sure that one of the questions I asked at the last time was how will the chair be appointed? I'll look back on the video, but it was by that committee, and for that committee to be going and meeting with traders without any authority is, quite frankly, totally out of order.
Not really, because first of all, Will, you say you think...
I'm going to start up a committee.
Will, hang on.
Can you take it in order now, please? One after the other.
Will, you say it's a Labour coup. Not at all, because we've got Pip and Carwyn, who both voted for Adam to be chair and for me to be secretary of this, okay? So that's not a Labour coup. I'm not saying there won't be people from other committees on it. I welcome other people from other committees on it, but the emphasis is on the traders. What myself and Adam are doing in our roles within Mumbles Traders, or whatever you want to call it, Chamber of Trade, is to facilitate for the traders.
Right, I haven't got a problem with you or Adam being chair, vice chair, not at all. I'd probably voted exactly the same way, right? That chair and vice chair, I said there's no problem at all with that. It's who selected them, and we discussed that it was that committee that was going to do that, and
it was
that committee should just then have a direction of what happens, not you and Adam going off and with Claire and making up your own agenda.
Okay. Can I please bring in Adam, and then can I bring in Carrie, please?
Well, I do understand and sort of half agree with your comments there. It's not what I've done the way in an ideal world I would like it. I'll just answer your question directly. Personally, I'm not sure if I want to be an MCC councillor again. I do have ambitions to be a county council one day. I'm not sure where that will be. Considering most businesses aren't in Mumbles, there's no personal gain for me here. I do, however, agree with the point you're making that I recognise you probably would have voted for us. I know you would have for us, two people. However, in this pandemic, we did go around and invite people to the meeting. We did tell them there was a meeting going on. You had it on the agenda. You spoke to people for 2 weeks and did a public notice for a week beforehand and said, do you want to come to this meeting? Could it have been done better? Maybe, but given the situations in a pandemic and that we wanted to get this off the ground and roll in, was the best we could do. And I'll be careful with my words, but personally, I don't really want to be chair of Mumbles Chamber of Trade, to be quite honest. I think it's a great idea, but I can kind of do without it. So I think considering the pandemic, we did as best as we could, but I do recognise you have some valid concerns there.
Okay, can I bring Carrie in now, please? And
yeah, just a couple of things. Yeah, I mean, I think it's brilliant that it's coming back into life after many years of ceased to exist. But I think it should be a Chamber of Trade. I don't think it should be an MCC organisation. So I think we should set some sort of time limit on the amount of time that MCC councillors are running it, and that, you know, Adam should be the interim chair until such time as the traders can actually vote for their own officers.
Okay.
The second thing is, sorry, I'll just ask the two and then you can answer them. You said they're going to pay. Well, what authority do we have as a community council to ask people for money?
Okay, can I just answer those two? They don't have to pay at this stage. We would like to eventually. At the moment, it's free for charge. And the way it's written is there's a vote every year, and I'll be quite happy to move on in a year's time.
Okay.
And it's only one MCC councillor on a committee of 12 members.
No, it's two. It's Rob and you.
At the moment, but in the Constitution, there's only one.
All right. So can we have sight of the Constitution?
Yes, I've got a PR statement, a Messrs House, a mission statement, and a Constitution, which I'm happy to spread further than the Cultural Committee.
Yeah. No, I think it just would be useful, you know, if we're agreeing to something, that all the councillors have had sight of what we're actually signing up to.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
right.
So
thanks.
Thank you for that contribution, Carrie. So, say for you, Will, would you be happy that we take this forward with you engaging in some discussion with both Adam and Rob into how we can take this forward?
I'm always happy, Martin. I'm not overly worried about anything. I'm just, all I'm saying.
You're raising a point, yeah.
I'm raising a point, and I'm saying that what we agreed, I'm sure, was that committee would decide the direction and the chair of that, and that obviously wasn't done. So I'm raising a point. So if that's addressed, of course, and fine. I'm sure the boys will do a very good job.
Okay. Can we move forward then on that then? And then questions to the chair of the Economic and Wellbeing Committee, which is Ian. Any questions? Well, if
out of interest, some feedback on what's happening with the top shops would be good, because I think environmental have an interest in that as well, in terms of actually making an input into how that's done and making sure that we get some sort of green input into it. So it would just be useful for a quick update on what's happening with the West Cross top shops, traffic calming, and anything else that's happening up there.
Ian, do you want to come in on that?
Well, I'm a big supporter of shared space, first and foremost. However, I was excluded from the, being chair of the economic, I was excluded from that meeting that was called by Mark Childs and Des Thomas. And West Cross councillors felt that they were more entitled to be at that meeting than a representative from the Economic Committee. However, it's great that that we have dialogue with City. I think that's fantastic. And I do feel that West Cross Top Shop's shared space could be something that, if it's successful, we could roll it out into other parts of our wards, and in particular, possibly be looking at the area around the Austrian, but most certainly looking at the area of the top shops. Now, the area around the top shops is in a shocking state. The state of the pavements, the state of the road is unbelievable. The amount of heavy traffic that's been pounding up and down there, all the way up to the top, up to Newton, it's a big issue. But shared space, it's a great idea. I do believe I have sent certain recommendations to the RFO for our forthcoming economic meeting, and shared space is one of those items that we will be looking at. But I think what is important, I think we need to have harness it under the umbrella of economic, the shared space concept. Otherwise, we're going to have different committees going out on working on different things without any form of control.
No, I'm more than happy for you to lead on it, but what I'm offering you is a bit of support.
A bit of what, sorry?
A bit of support in terms of, you know, if you want to actually, you know, we would like to see some sort of green input into it, and we are offering you our support.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a grand idea, and I know that Rebecca would like to see some shared space project, possibly in the Alderwood Road area.
Right.
And I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with that. But we need to bring in the consultant on this project. We need to do it in a proper way, so that it's not just localized at the top of West Cross Lane. You know, there are so many areas where we could do something, and possibly again we should be looking down at Southend. You know, but we need to
start
evolve.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Pardon?
We need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm a big fan of it, actually.
And I know it's on the agenda for the next Economic and Wellbeing Committee.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I also think it deserves a round of applause to the Economic Committee to give £9,000 to Southend. I think that was great.
Hey.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay then. I think that concludes all our business for today. We don't have any other business, thankfully. So I will thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your input, and thank you all for your good behavior as well. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.